You're listening to the Totally Indian Football Show by humans of Indian football.
Well, guys, welcome to the show, and I have once again all of us joining us. Sayak is not here, but unfortunately, he's giving much more important stuff. He's studying for his exams, so we wish him well again. We have Ajay Menon. Hello, Ajay.
Hey, hi Siju. What's up?
All good. How have you been?
All good, all good. Enjoying the season of ISL.
Great. Welcome to the show, Arko.
Hi Siju, thanks for having me again.
Good to have you always. And finally, we have Sandeep Menon, who is not now joining us from Bangalore, but from Kerala.
Hi, what's up, guys? Enjoying quarantine. How are you guys?
Good, good. I think it's a good thing to do a podcast during quarantine.
Yeah, perfect. Not much to do, right? And food is
Yeah,
all taken care of, so I have nothing to do at all.
yeah. All we have to do is talk, and Indian football always gives us reasons to talk about. Now we are back off from great fixtures from good matches from the week that went by, and to start off with, once again, to tell our listeners, we recorded this episode on a Wednesday. So I think I'm quickly gonna come to Sandeep because he's eagerly waiting to talk about this. We did speak about Bengaluru FC having to step up and do their job, which they often do it. Well, not as we expected, but I think the teams that they played against did a good job. Firstly, I'll come to you with Bangalore versus Northeast United. Sandeep, before you start, I think I must say this, though I tweeted about this, I must say this, Udanta did hear the podcast, what you said about him. He was quite, okay, he comes off the bench and gets that goal, though it
Yeah,
ended up in a draw.
Vedanta's a big fan. Always been.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's great for Vedanta because I just remembered something while I was watching the game. Last year, I think, missed an open goal against Northeast in the last match they played away and went off the bar. And probably that is where his career or his season sort of went pear-shaped last year. So it's like a nice thing that he managed to score the goal here, sort of like a full circle. Let's hope he can pick up from here. But as such, when you look at both games, it panned out similar to what we thought it would. Except the Northeast was a lot more attacking. They showed another side of their game that they can attack, counter attack mostly, and BFC showed that they can defend. But at the same time, little fortune, like some slights of fortune for Northeast in the two goals, but that's fair. I think they've taken their chances and they scored. Then what would you say about BFC's performance? This is the thing, right? They did what they always did, both against Chennai and against Northeast. They look like they fight hard and they defend well, and then they do all the like the pump up things that you say before the match, right? Like you have to fight hard, all that thing they do very well. But again, creativity in the final third remains a question. Again, goals scored from set pieces or made out of from keeping set pieces alive, second balls and things like that. Dimas adds a lot. Suresh is very good in midfield. You can't really fault them for their efforts or how they played, but there is still something missing in the final third. And maybe if Udanta comes in, Clayton comes to a number 10 role or something like that, something might change, or maybe even go as number 9. So they have sort of more mobility up front could be an answer, but you never know. But yeah, I'm not very convinced with Bangalore even now, but good results, especially that win against Chennai.
Arko, how good is this Northeast United side? I mean, we've been talking about them being the underdog and dark horse. I think they're up there, spoiling everyone's expectations and everything. But I feel we should just stop calling them the dark horse. They are giving a performance like a title contender this time.
Well, it's important to note that Northeast, like we said before, they'd be a potential banana skin for any team that's looking to make the top four, and they did again yesterday. They simply refuse to die. Even against the Blasters, I think they came from 2 goals down to draw. So it's important to see. It's important to see how they do go into a second half of a season because, as we mentioned, team depth is an issue, right? Nose did rotate yesterday, but again, it's a one man rotation, or it's two men being rotated, right? What has gone in Noose's favor, so far is that none of his foreigners or none of his key players have been injured, right? So that is one. thing. And secondly, they did come out and they played more openly yesterday. Noose, after the match, he did say that he wanted all the 3 points. At the end, there were a couple of chances where he might have got the 3 points also. So it's very interesting to see him, change it up like this. But yeah, I mean, in the long run, I still feel, that lack of quality Indian depth will hurt. Him not being able to rotate. Right, we are also entering a very busy phase of the competition where a lot of teams are playing 6 games in 20 days, 6 games in 21 days. Right, for someone like a Hyderabad FC who have like 2 to 3 fit foreigners, it's disastrous for them not to have any fit strikers at the moment. But when you look at Northeast United, you think this run can go on much longer. But really, I mean, Noose is battling the odds, right? So it'll be remarkable if he can keep this up till the end of the season.
Yeah, and the clubs from Calcutta, one took an upset. Jamshedpur came up and came out, and they emerged winners against ATKMB. Yes, listeners, we have finally said the name right. We've got the name right, ATKMB, and we'll make sure we take the name right. To all the fans, apologies for that. But East Bengal continues their dry run, and they are yet to score. In fact, they lost against the Northeast United. Uh, I'll come to you, Sandeep, in a while. I know you're eagerly wanting to talk. Before that, I'll just have Ajay speak on how happy are you, Ajay, with Mumbai City's performance. So we didn't touch upon their game against Odisha because, as expected, that's the result. But Mumbai is clearly looking like they are finally finding their steam under Lovera.
Absolutely. I mean, they really look good. The midfield is working, and I think playing a single striker up front, either Bart or Adam Mefondre, is the trick essentially, to get the Lobera system up and running. And I think, again, even against Odisha, they were quite comfortable. They ended up 2-0 winners, but they could have won by more. In fact, actually, they put the foot out of the pedal and allowed Odisha to, create some half chances right at the end. But I think he won't be concerned. And the advantage that Mumbai City FC obviously have is the depth. They've assimilated a brilliant squad, obviously with the investment from the City Football Group. To have two quality number nines, two foreign number nines is a luxury in this particular league. And even the likes of Sai Godard, who's exciting, and he looks a par above, the Indian players who are there. He's only going to get better as the season goes on. And yeah, if his first team players, his first choice players remain fit, nothing like it. I see them probably, winning the Shield, topping the league standings come end of the season. But even if he does get some, even if the players do suffer from some injuries, he's got enough quality to sort of replace those players.
The other team that has caught the stream finally, as expected, we did say that they do have a great team, and that's FC Goa, right? Who like a great win against Kerala Blasters, and it's like Kibu and Robbie Fowler have a lot to do. They have to go back to their dressing room, or else it's a short season. Anything can happen, and considering these both clubs, one of them who are used to changing their coaches every now and then. So it's going to be a tough task ahead for both these teams unless they start performing. Yes, Sandeep, I will now come to you. And what is it that you want to tell us? Something about East Bengal.
So East Bengal at the Northeast game. So I was watching it and see Northeast is going to always defend. Their biggest strength is the fact that they have a box of four, the two centre backs and the two midfielders, Khasa, Kamara, and maybe Apuya or whoever plays there. That part is very strong. And people mostly have to attack them through the wings. So that's generally what happens that's happened against Bangalore FC also. So this East Bengal being very good and Northeast, the narrative that was told sometimes by a few people was East Bengal was very good in possession, blah, blah, blah. What does it matter? They had 14 shots to Northeast 10 shots. They had 2 shots on target to Northeast 3. So if just because you have a lot of the ball and then you're shooting from range and not really doing much doesn't really mean that you're playing a great game. So I keep hearing the commentators say, "Oh, not East Bengal is dominating. The result is a little unfair and all." I just feel it's stupid to say that because defensive football is a method of playing football. Okay, and if you are going to be successful with that, with the kind of budget that he has, with the kind of player that he has, and I spoke to Noose also a little bit during one of the press conferences about his what he wanted to do, and he said, I have to adapt to the players that I got, and this is it. So the next game when they came to BFC, the narrative was, okay, two defensive teams, how are you going to do it? And then again, he said, there are principles of my play which will remain the same, but we'll work a little bit around it. So you saw a different version, but it was again the strong defensive, setup that they had. They sit back, they allow Dimas, who has to drop into wing back areas and hit the long balls, cross and whatnot. Again, Ashik is the only one who was doing something because he was running on the left. And to be fair to Ashutosh, he managed that flank quite well against Ashik and Sunil doubling up often. So just give some love to the way these people play football, Northeast or BFC, who are defensively very strong, especially Northeast, because people still feel like Orko said, they are a banana peel, but give them the respect because they've been banana peeling a lot of people. So that's something that I want to very clearly say, that this is a very good team. At least at the moment, the way they are playing, it's very good. Just enjoy the fact that there is in a league which is filled with money and people are, always saying like it's so much, there is no fairy tale like an ISL going to happen. This is close to a fairy tale that you'll get if they go on to win the title.
Sandeep, who do you think is going to score East Bengal's first goal?
I don't know, man. I would say Pilkington.
Robbie Fowler, I think.
You know
Come
what?
off the bench, a late sub.
You know what? I'm going to go for Balbat. He's going to tap in, through his chest or his shoulder or something, and it's going to go in. Scrappy goal.
Anyway, let's move on to some one like the best part of this conversation or this podcast rather. Last time we spoke about Northeast United FC, the club. We looked at detail. We also dwelled into the region of Northeast and not just the club. Thanks to the great panelists we have, we had a great discussion. So continuing with that, today's theme is, I think, the quote that I will read out for our listeners and all of us would probably give us a hint of what are we going to talk about. So here's a quote by our national team coach Igor Stimac. This was quoted to Sports Star. I've been taking the quote from there. So the quote starts like this. Quote, we will never find a replacement for Chhetri while the situation is like this. I cannot take someone who has never played as a striker at the top level and put him in the national team as a striker. From where am I going to find a striker? That's end quote. And that is the question. We are going to try and find not a solution to it, but at least try and discuss about where will the next striker come for our Indian team, from our Indian camp, from our Indian sides and the clubs. Because just to look at it, probably till yesterday, like I said, again to repeat, we are recording this on a Wednesday and this will come out on a Friday. But as of now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, Indian players who have scored. Out of that, there's only one that plays as, and out of that, one is an own goal. Okay, and the other is only who plays as a proper striker and forward, and that is the Sunil Chhetri that we're talking about. And that was a penalty. So I'll start with Arko. Arko, we've had Thapa, who I think probably after 3-4 matches we saw him score. He's also not a proper full-time forward as such. Then we had Manveer Singh score, and then there was a complete silence until Sunil Chhetri took that penalty spot kick, and then we had some great goals by Rowlin, by Chara, and then last night against Northeast United, Udanta scored. So Arko, let me come to you, and the question is what Igor Stimac, the national team coach, is also asking, that where am I going to find a striker in a situation like this where Indian leagues hardly ever produce Indian names out there for striking position, and it's literally going to cost us a lot at for the national team. So how do you see, to start this conversation, what do you have to say?
So this is the first season, I think, of ISL where you don't have a single Indian who's playing, up front and through the center, right? You have Sunil Chhetri who's playing on the wing, who's playing on the left, right? Through the 6 seasons, you've either had only one of these two, JJ or Sunil.
Balwant is there, no?
Balwant, yeah, but again, is Balwant the main guy there? You have to ask that. That's a question you also have to ask, right?
True, true.
And Balwant also is. Let's not forget Balwant is what 33 right now. So yeah, Balwant's not getting any younger either. So it's very curious to see that you have a 11 team league in which none of the 11 teams have an Indian guy who's playing through a center. I think this is the first season of the ISL because last year, even though JJ didn't play, you had Sunil who played through the center in a few games. When tried to go with an all Indian front three, right? Uh, yeah, it's simple, and for teams, everyone wants to win. Like nobody wants to be left behind, right? The only reason they're all going with an Indian foreign striker is because this is tried and tested. Everybody has seen that foreign guys come in and they do the job. Right, this year also you have Angulo, you have Valskis, all of these guys spotting. So you know nobody's really coming in and taking that onus saying, yeah, I'm going to come in and I'm going to score those goals, right? Because if you have an Indian striker, right, you want him to at least in a in a 20 game league, you want him to at least get 6 to 10 goals, right? And nobody right now even looks close to doing that. Like you saw Manveer came up with a very good strike, but how many games did he play in Goa in his time? He played an average of 200 minutes every year at Goa. I don't think that's anywhere close to what Stimach wants. Right? You have your other counterparts playing 2,000 minutes, 3,000 minutes throughout the year. Right? It's nowhere good enough or nowhere close enough. So even if you have a striker, you have the Jobis, you have the Manvis, everyone's on the bench or being shunted out. And as recent trends suggest, turn into fullbacks, right? The curious case of Shubham Sarangi is an interesting one because Shubham started off as a striker when he was younger, right? Then he moved back to central midfield by Joseph Gombau, and now he's playing at right back, right? So that's the progression of a young striker's career. So you can see, and even at the elite league or even at even in the second division, you have guys, you have Indians scoring goals, but then they really need to play regularly and score in the ISL for them to justify that national team spot, for them to justify that tag of this is the next Chhetri, right? The last guy to even score a substantial number of non-penalty goals, I think, was JJ when he got 9 goals, I think, in a season. And yeah, I think that's the closest any Indian has even come to breaching the 10-goal barrier in a ISL season. I think Sunil did, but I think some of it was penalties also. Then I was looking at an interesting comparison. I was looking at the Bangladesh league, and I saw that in their top scorers list they had some guys who had 17 goals, some guys who had 13 goals, right? So these are guys who are playing regularly in the league. I'm not saying the Indian striker will start scoring immediately, right? But as long as none of the 11 teams is giving anybody a chance, right? It's really difficult for anybody to come into season one and score. And honestly, nobody's going to afford any Indian striker that amount of time. Saying you play one season, you don't score, but it's all okay. Next season maybe you'll hit the peaks. Let's look at the arrow strikers also, right? Rahim Ali not starting, Aniket Jadhav not starting. Last you had Vikram Pratap who's out through an injury. You have then you have Manveer Singh who might get time at Sudeva. This is also a fact, right? Even if you have one foreign player, the likelihood that the foreign player is a striker is 100%, right? In the second division, you have spot for one foreign player that usually goes to the striker. In some cases, it goes to a centre back. In I League, you have a 3+1 rule. Guarantee that one of those 3+1 is a striker, right? So where are the Indian strikers going to get game time from? Big question marks over that. Are they going to get time to settle in? Bigger question mark over that. Once they've settled in, are they going to get the goals? And repose the faith? Biggest question mark of them all.
Sandeep, he mentioned about, again, like the point that he mentioned was 3+1. Even if you go by the rule, that one would be a striker, and it would not be the Indian. Even if you go look at I League, the all-time, I mean, the only Indian that has featured among the Golden Boot winners is Sunil Chhetri, and and the highest number of goals by an Indian top scorer is Sunil Chhetri, who's still playing. The others are all former players. So if the leagues, is it the my question to you uh, is it because we don't have a full, around the season, around the year, the whole season of Indian football, just like the other leagues that happen? Is it because of that the coaches have to go, and because of the whole thing of, we need quick results, right? So that's why they don't want to depend highly on Indian strikers. That's why they go for the foreigners. Is that the reason? One of the reason, at least? Do you think so?
Yeah, 100%. But it's more than that, right? Like when I League was there, we had a 13 team leagues as recently as some 6, 7 years ago. So it's a much longer league. But even there, they chose a foreign striker because it's very simple. In if you look at it objectively, because it's the hardest position to play on the football field. Because what it needs is a lot of repetition and also imagination to be able to pop up at the right place, to do the right things, and all those kind of things. To know the basic movements and how to help another teammate by a movement and all these things. And these are repetitions that you have to do. There are very few strikers who are naturally very instinctively good. A lot of them have to come through repetition. And second part of this is football in India, whatever said and done, has also slightly changed from the time when earliest the big strikers were all African strikers. You had those guys who were strong and powerful, and now we have Spaniards coming in who are a lot more technical and who are able to manipulate the ball in a very much different way than to what a battering ram striker used to be before. So the techniques have also sort of evolved. Now, if you look at it from an Indian perspective, we don't have a proper youth league. Robin at 23 doesn't have the experience of a 23-year-old. Like he's a very naive striker. And it'll take him a long time to get there because he hasn't played enough. And he kept on repeating this, saying that these guys are, unable to play enough. So they're always playing catch up. So that means a coach whose job is on the line would rather let this guy go and say, okay, you know what, take 2 years, you play as my number nine. Hopefully 3 years later, third year, you will start scoring 7, 8, 9, 10 goals. Until then, his job is not safe. And at that time, there was relegation as well. So even that is also there. And the foreign striker, when you bring in hoping that he's going to score a goal, he's on a higher wage. So the management will also ask questions if you keep playing the young Indian striker up front and not paying, picking this guy who is on a higher wage. And so you can't keep them at the length also. So once you reach that senior division, the chances of you developing is very low. So what you have to do is make sure that they develop as much as possible when they were younger. And there is also the continuity thing with managers. Like a guy will come 2 years, maybe 1 year, and then they'll this half of the ISL teams, more than half, they just change the coach completely. So then he has to come. The foreign striker comes saying he is my first choice. The Indian guy who maybe made some inroads last year comes and the new coach suddenly he has to impress him all over again and then gone. Like take Daniel Lalampuya or Togesim Hoikip, who had good seasons in the I League at one point, but never kicked on because Karim Benzarifa was gone or Ashley Westwood left the team, whatever happens. So these are all the difference once you reach the top division that they face. But as a youngster, how much are you playing even? That's the biggest thing, right? You have to grow up and match a foreigner who is played, like Orko said, 3,000 minutes to your 250 minutes on the field. As a youngster, what he said is as a senior, but as a youngster also, there is that much of a difference. And until we, sort of figure a way out, and there are few suggestions and things like that, it's always been in the air, but unless we sort of focus on that and say, okay, make sure that we develop these people, give them extra games or whatever, and the different ways again, there will not be a striker who's going to, let's say, replace Sunil Chhetri for the lack of a better term. But it's just not going to happen. And we were lucky, if you look at it, to have an IM Vijayan and then a Baising Bhutia and then Sunil Chhetri, all of them who were attackers. Lucky that they were generational talents who came one after the other in the attacking third. Otherwise, we would have been in much greater trouble. And Stimats court, I mean, he knew what he was signing up for. So you can't later say, I don't have a striker. That doesn't make any sense.
just adding on to the point that Sandeep made, right? So, should we look for a striker to replace Sunil Chhetri, or should we look for a system to replace Sunil Chhetri? That's the biggest question right now, right? We have Baichung Bhutia come through ranks, we have a IM Vijayan come through ranks, we have Sunil Chhetri come through ranks, right? And then we think, oh, it's okay, we are producing strikers. But is that the case? Or is it a case of, these guys, coming through the ranks rather than the system pushing them through the ranks? Like, which case is it? I think that deserves a deeper introspection, right? I was just looking at the ISL stats of last. You remove Sunil Chhetri and you remove Jackie, right? No Indian has got more than 3 goals, and that's a frightening stat. If even if you're the national team coach, right? And he shouldn't be the one in camps producing strikers, making them play as strikers. No, it should be the other way around. It should be the clubs feeding the national team. It shouldn't be the national team, going and telling clubs to play the Indian strikers. It can't work like that, right? Even in a J League, a high quality Asian league such as the J League, you see Japanese guys who play strikers ahead of the Argentine guys, ahead of the Brazilian guys, right? I understand the strikers always going to be in demand in any league that you go, right? But even in the English Premier League, a Danny Ings is playing, an English striker is playing week in, week out, a Jamie Vardy is playing week in, week out, right? So, are we going to rest now, because a Sunil Chhetri has come through the ranks? Or are we going to say, no, we need to have 5, 10 Sunil Chhetris in order to increase the competition, right? In order to drive the competition to that level, right? So, we should not just assume that these players are just going to come through the ranks. They're not going to, unless there's a definitive approach for them to come through the ranks, right? I think that is the key differentiator here.
Some brilliant points from both of you guys. Ajay, I want to ask you, is one of the reasons also probably we are not pushing our Indian coaches more enough to take up the lead role, the head coach? One. Secondly, just now what Arko just mentioned about the system. So we are falling back again, and Sandeep mentioned we don't have a proper youth league. So you being somebody very heavily involved with the grassroots. That's where we are coming down to. We've literally not got our job done right at the root, at the base of it. So first, if you can address the first one and then talk about the second point.
Yeah, so I'll just plug back to what Sandeep had mentioned. In terms of the players lacking in imagination and creativity. I think that stems down to what, as a coach, you teach the kids, or how the kids learn at the grassroots. Because I've seen that over the course of time that things have been changing. But back in the day, the Indian coaches, probably because of the lack of education, football education, or probably because they were stuck in this military like system. They were hell bent on putting their ideologies in place, which meant restricting the creativity of a child, which eventually meant in lack of cerebral players overall in the system. So this is something that I've seen that over the course of time, I've seen Indian coaches who now do not stop kids from expressing themselves on the field, and grassroots below the age of 12, under 12 is the area to get these cognitive skills. The kids will make mistakes, but that's completely fine. I mean, because that's where you make mistakes and you learn. That being said, there is not a clear transition from grassroots into youth football. I mean, I can vouch for the fact that to play in the youth leagues is a very expensive affair. We talk about I League clubs being shut down because of financial constraints. I'm telling you, if we have more clubs playing in the youth I League, under 13, under 15, under 17, under 19, I think that would be better for the ecosystem. But given the present situation, it is so expensive to field a team. For one age group, forget multiple age groups, and there are a lot of norms which become very difficult to attain if you want to participate as a football club, which causes a lot of small club owners, small academy owners to back out of it, and then the monopoly is only with the limited number of clubs, and hence the kids have a very limited amount of slots to try for. So the trials are very restricted. lot of kids drop out of the sport also, given the fact that they are disillusioned, or they opt for education, given the fact that football is not a sustainable career option. So I think to start off with, it comes from here, like develop a decent pathway. It can be zonal, district, state, national leagues, but promote more clubs, promote more Indian coaches. I think coach education is something which is completely important, and it's a whole different topic altogether. So I'm just not getting into it in much detail. Secondly, I think given the current system that we have, with the ISL and I League, I really think that we need a reserves league, and at least an under 21 league has to be compulsory, where you have your reserve team players playing week in week out, your under 21 players playing week in week out, so they get those match minutes, and hence when they are promoted into first team ISL action, they don't look out of place, because the perfect example, since we spoke about Robin is without a contract right now, and whatever said and done, he was considered as a talent. The likes of Sumit Pasi, I don't know where he is, and it's very disheartening to see that we have no attacking players. So forget about a proper number 9, but at least those wide players who get a lot of goals, or who are involved in a lot of moves. I mean, we're not seeing them in action. The likes of Aniket Jadhav, Rahim Ali, barely seen any minutes. Farooq Chaudhary also, Vikram Pratap, and in fact even Ishan Pandita, who's come from Spain. I believe he's injured, but we need to see these boys get more minutes. But having said all of that, eventually in the ISL, it is about getting results. It's a very myopic, short-term kind of route, which is why you would see these foreign managers stick with the tested and proven strikers. And even if it were Indian coaches, I would see no difference, to be honest with you, because given the fact that it is so competitive, even an Indian coach would go for a foreign striker and a foreign centre back, so that the team has got overall stability. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I can go on and on to talk about in terms of youth football, and I have always mentioned my severe disdain on social media about 11 aside under 13. I think it's just very, very ridiculous, because that doesn't really help anyone. And overall, if you look at the youth system, you have a lot of people who eventually drop out. So where is the next Indian striker? He might be a software engineer, for all you know.
Now, Arko, you mentioned that coming up the ranks, right? The players like a Baichung or a Chhetri or a Vijayan coming up the ranks. So, if I'm not wrong, coming up the ranks, you meant by probably a football system that was in place, like a TFA or an academies, or that came about with players, right? So, uh, how do you see the future going about? We have an RFY. We do have certain players from there who are playing in this season, or rather are part of the teams. So how can we probably get those TFAs or some more TFAs into picture and active and running? Ajay also mentions about lack of money even in there to put in and push. There are many academies also shutting shops. So how do you see that going ahead?
So I just like to clarify, the academy is the last step of the developmental process, right? It's the place where, the good kids are funneled into the academy to try and polish them into professional footballers, right? The base of all development is obviously informal football, right? Your small sided games, your baby leagues, right? You can't really approach development that way, saying I have an elite academy now, now let me try and build steps below that leading up to the elite academy. No, because then what's happening is that you you need to ensure each and every kid that goes into the elite academy is fighting for his or her spot, right? Is not just getting there because they are the only people with those skill sets. No, like there needs to be a higher base of players to go into those academies, right? So I look at academies as finishing schools. That's all they are, right? They're not the place where you hone your skills. They're the place where where you learn Tactically you learn, technically, but yeah, like your technical development is already started from the time you're 4, from the time you're 5, right? There's no point in me starting an academy for the under 8s or the under 10s, right? Or having 11-a-side games for them. Really, it really defeats the purpose, right? The important thing is mindset, right? Even now we'd like to glorify youth results. We like to say, we won the under 18, 15, 13 cup, right? But what are you really achieving by doing that, right? Are you making a dent into senior football, right? Those are the questions you have to ask, right? At the age group level, it cannot be about winning, right? It has to be about playing the right way. It has to be about showing the right intent, and it has to be about consistency, right? So yes, with youth compensation coming in and all that, a lot of people have more incentive to develop youth right now, right? But below these academies, right, below the TFAs, the CFAs, the Reliance Academy, below the AF Elite Academies, I think Ajay also runs a setup in Mumbai, right? But how is he getting those players, right? How is he getting those players who've already played 300 games by the time they're coming into the academy, right? If he's running an under 16 academy, right, he's taking a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, right? Is a 13-year-old, has he played 40 into 8 games since the time he's 5? Has he played 320 games since the time he's 5? Right? I don't think so. Right? That's your major challenge right there. Right? So science tells us there is this white stuff that's formed in our brain when we do a thing 10,000 times over, right? Like, repeated repetition, it results in muscle memory, and then and only then, as a footballer, do you hit the peak, right? For example, that the goal that Gotze scored, right? And I've seen the BVB training center, right? He must have done that 1,000, 10,000 times in training for him to go and do that at that level, right? He must have faced the Fusbonaut 10,000 times to try and score that goal, and only then did he go and succeed at that level, right? So for us to come and say today that we're just going to start 10 academies in 10 states, right? That's I don't know about the efficacy of that approach. Like I really question that approach. So what you're looking at today is that you're facing a major crunch, during the time that science tells us that kids are supposed to develop. Science tells us that kids pick up the best during the ages 4 to 8, because they're mostly driven by internal stimuli, right? They've still not been, let's say, affected so much by external stimuli that they can't take in things, right? Anything that they say, right? So football today also has to be taken as a science, as physics, as chemistry, as it has to be treated the same way, right? Right? Do your research, get papers out, look at what is hampering football development in each state separately, right? There is no one size fits all approach again, right? Develop a tailor made approach for 30 guys. Think about how these kids will get game time, by the time they're 15, and then you have a bunch of youngsters who are ready to fight it out with each other, right? That is the essence of becoming a football player. Between 15 and 21, he has to fight for his spot, right? He cannot be gifted a spot anywhere. He has to fight for a spot. He has to, come out on top against all the other guys that are vying for that spot, right? And then and only then can you maybe see, some upward movement.
Yeah, just to add to Arko's point, we run the football school here in Mumbai, and our major focus of development is between the ages 4 to 12. I mean, those are the kids who are there in that age group, and over the course of time, we've actually lost a lot of kids because the parents have taken the kids away. Because for us, it's all about development. It's not about results. And when we play five-a-side games under 10, we ensure that the child plays in every position, the boy or girl, so that they get the experience of playing there, and develop his or her skills over the course of time. And we work hard with the coaches. We try to develop a curriculum, try to structure it, and we try to evaluate and monitor how the child progresses. But then when it comes to match day, we have parents who are shouting more than the coaches. They're putting pressure on the kids. Everyone wants their child to play up top. By the way, no one wants their child to play in goal. So all the parents want their children to be number nines and score a lot of goals, and bring home the trophy and probably post a picture of it on social media. So unfortunately, that is the culture, but that stems from even elite clubs winning, or rather promoting themselves as winners of all age groups. And even though there's age fraud that happens, which is again a totally different topic for another day, that add up, and you mentioned the whole Japanese system of the grassroots. You see the number of licensed coaches over there. You see the number of grassroots schools over there. It's crazy, and I think we can get there, but we need the support. I mean, through the last 9 months of the pandemic, I can be candid and share that we've got literally zero support from a football club, or the district body or the national body. It's just, I mean, we're just left to sort of seal our own fates in a way. So overall, being in the ecosystem, it is disappointing. But I think if anyone who's listening, who's a grassroots coach, or a youth coach, I think all that matters is to develop the child, to develop the child's technical skills, and of course the tactical skills eventually as the child progresses, and give that freedom, for the child to grow. You don't need to be like all military style and no, you have to do this, you have to follow this pattern. Just allow the child to grow, and you'll see remarkable results.
Yeah, I think competition is something that I mean Indians are good at, and the competitive spirit or the demand in having a good result is across everywhere. So it's quite, I think parents not having putting the pressure on the kids on a football match and that age. I mean, how much can we explain, or how much can any association or any group do that? So apart from that, that's something up to them. How they see it, and how much ever we make them understand. It's again like what they want to take it. But coming back to this conversation, Sandeep, do you see about how important does probably scouting come into picture? And if you can, if you have any inputs out there, how good or efficient is our scouting network in Indian football?
I'll be honest and say I don't think it's very good straight off the bat, because and it's not completely their fault also, because we don't have that many scouts or that many people who can go around, watch the games, and just figure out from subtle things. And your 7, 8, 9, 10 year old, they don't really stand out. Like, not a lot of them do stand out. So they need the right eye, and so the right training and all these kind of things, which I don't think you're getting. A lot of them are ex-players who may see somebody and then tell a from a club or an academy that they know, or maybe they run and ask him to come and train over there, and those kind of things, because we don't have an environment for football as such. And that's going to be the hardest thing. Like Orko said, the hardest thing is going to be creating the environment for football where these coaches can go and scout. Like, take Sergio Aguero, for example. He used to play these black tournaments where nobody was there, and in like a small, like a five-a-side train, but covered from five sides, and there's no out, and you keep playing. He figured out how to control the ball with his shin, because that's what he had to do to survive over there. And then people saw him over there and picked him up and went on. Now, we in Kerala is known for sevens and fives football and things like that. How many times do we see a coach or somebody coming there and watching them play, and see if there is somebody who can pick them up? And to be fair, most of the players would have played five or sevens at some point, but not a lot of them have picked up because they played five and sevens. They also played somewhere else and then came through that way. So scouting, I don't think, is a very smart. The thing also, right? Like, Ajay touched on this age fraud thing, and it's a big problem because these guys go, let's up until 16, 17, right? If you are 2 years older than them, it's a massive, massive advantage. Like, physically, it's massive. And then you might see this guy who is just bullying the entire team and then destroying people, and then you pick him up and say, oh, he's going to be the star. Like, you've heard so many names, and I'm not going to name names, that people who are like older than they are, who played in youth leagues for much longer than people who are actually teenagers. So then these guys come back to, when they pick up, and then you take them to the your academy. He's still older, and then comes the stage when he has to go to the senior division and open level. Suddenly he doesn't have that advantage. of being stronger, of being faster, or physically more dominant. You're playing against men or people at your own age, and suddenly you can't deal with it because mentally you can't take the fact that you can't bully them anymore. Whatever you used to do, what things that you didn't develop to get better at that age, and you relied on your strength and your physical prowess, that doesn't come to the fore when you go break into the the open level. So the number of whispers that we hear about this guy is coming through, that guy is coming through, he's going to be a big talent in 3 years, 4 years, never materialize because they can't cut it at that level. And they can't cut it at the training level, which is why they don't start the games only. And if you can't cut it at the training level, when there is actually no pressure on you to go and replicate that, like Orko said, you have to do it 1,000 times in training before you have the confidence to go and attempt that at the highest level. So the age fraud is one major issue, and it severely affects scouting also, I think.
So just adding on to Sandeep's point, right? We have a gross misassumption that because we have a billion people, there's a Messi somewhere out there. No, I disagree with that completely, right? So it's like saying we have a billion people who are studying engineering, so there must be an Einstein out there, right? It's not the fault of scouting or anybody who's coming to check out guys, or who's coming to check out players. It's not going to happen like that. It's not going to, you're not going to develop a talent like that overnight, right? At that age group, at 6, 7, 8, right? Your players aren't very different, right? Then again, it's about polishing those guys from that age, right? I think in the lead up to the World Cup, I think Tom Bayer, who's a very famous developmental expert in football, Tom Bayer, did a study on 12 guys playing the World Cup, including Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Di Maria, Neymar, and he found one common thread. All of them started really young, right? Di Maria, for example, joined his first club at 4. He was transferred to another club at 7, in exchange for a bag of footballs, right? And so on and so forth, right? Uruguay, the only reason a country, that of that size produces this many players is because of its pony leagues, right? What we call as baby leagues here, right? So it's really interesting to, because some people come and say, oh, infrastructures are a problem. It's not. Scoutings are a problem. It's not, right? Let's be very clear. Like, do we have a system in place to develop these talents? Even if we had a Messi's talent at 6, would he become a Messi at 18? Those are the questions you're supposed to ask, right? And regarding age fraud, of course, it's a major problem. But then again, how many people are doing the reverse? How many people are putting genuine 14-year-olds in an under 18 team? Of course, there's also a challenge that guy might leave football forever after being kicked on his shins, But how many people are progressive enough to think that, today if I put a 14-year-old or 15-year-old in a under 18 team, he might gain invaluable experience by the time he's 17. How many people are thinking like that? I think very few.
I think, Tom Bayer keeps on saying football starts at home, football starts at home. He's absolutely right. But, having seen parents or the mentality of parents throughout these years, I see a massive, shift in extremes. Either your parents who are totally disinterested in, a child becoming a sports person, or you have an obsessive parent who probably knows more than the coaches, and who shadow coaches from the sidelines and messes up the entire morale of the team during a match. So it is quite difficult to find that football culture or that sporting culture that we don't have in a country, and which I believe all of us to in some capacity are trying to develop. Where you really want India to become more of a sporting nation. So yeah, I mean the quest to find the next Indian striker has got multiple answers. There are so many questions and so many layers, and I think at the end of it, I still can't believe that Balwant Singh and I are of the same age. It might be the night cream I use, which makes me look so young.
But what is going to be even harder now is to actually get youngsters to go out and play, because now with the computer games and things like that coming in, like when we grew up, or we are all around the same age, when we grew up, there were computer games but they were not this all encompassing, and not everyone had it. So my entire life, I had morning I used to go play football, then I used to sit in the house for a while, then evening I used to go out and play football, and then in between, maybe in the afternoon, if there is time, we used to play cricket, and very little time was spent on gadgets. How do you now ask a boy or a girl to get out of the house in this scorching heat to go and do and play football, or anything for that matter, any outdoor sport for that matter? And maybe they'll go and play once or twice or play next to each other, but to make them consistently go and play, like I cover swimming, the amount of effort that these kids put in. They wake up at 4, they go for a swim in the morning, then go to school, then after that come back, they have a second session in the evening, then they have a gym session, and then they go to sleep again, and then wake up at 4. It is not easy, and we are nowhere in the top level in the amount of effort that these kids put in to be the best in the state, to make it to the B cuts of the Asian Games or the B cuts of the Olympics and things like that. It's massive, massive. That Srihari is a teenage guy. He's been doing this for years. I've seen him since 2013 when he was a small kid, and there are so many of them doing this, and that kind of effort doesn't come from a lot of people. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice from the parents, a lot of sacrifice from the kid, who's going to lose out on his time to chill with friends. When you're in your late teens, you want to hang out with girls. So many distractions that come through, and it's a tough thing, but yeah, it's just getting more and more challenging.
But are we the only country with gadgets and distractions, Sandeep?
No, we are not. Absolutely not. But then there is a difference here, because now that we're talking about football, in Uruguay and Argentina, it's a way of life. They all go play football. There is a big culture of playing football, and they know that if they're good enough, they can keep progressing up. In India, there is no culture of football. As a matter of fact, our only good culture in sport is in cricket, because there is a lot of tournaments and things like that that keeps happening. So if there is no incentive, like I have friends who are good enough to play district and things like that, who stop playing immediately after, who played for the state and things at the under 15s, under 13s, who didn't continue this, not because they didn't want to, because when you ask the questions, what are you going to do playing football, they have no answer. And they would have by that time also seen a lot of issues like age fraud, issues like someone favoring someone and getting picked above and things like that. So we don't have that culture. So I think it's going to affect us a lot more that all these gadgets are coming in than anything else. Because if you play esports, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. If you are good, you are going to be ranked right up there at the top of the heap. And there is absolutely no politics in between. If you have a good internet connection, good system, and good reflexes, and yeah, you can go straight to the top. There's nobody going to stop you about it.
Well, if the question is about the system, and that is something uh, that we can see kids coming up the ranks, that's what we've been seeing for some time now. There's a stop. So, Arko, how soon can we expect, or how soon should we actually put a system in place to probably put an end to this question of where we can find a next striker, and how much of an effort an ISL I League clubs will have to take along with the federation to actually put that in system and continue having or have youth leagues and other baby leagues continuously keep them having.
This is a difficult question to answer, right? Because you can put a system in place, but the whole world isn't static, right? Today, you said you want to put a system in place to try and reach those levels, whereas those guys are also constantly evolving, right? So by the time you reach the system that they're using currently, they would have gone ahead, another 20 steps. So what you need to do right, today is to be, is to be proactive, is to plan for the future, is to be future proof, right? And that might mean a few years of heartbreak, a few years of abysmal rankings, a few years of, let's say, struggle internationally, right? So the bigger question is, are we ready for that? Are we ready for to give up those years, right? Or are we so set in our ways that that we continue to only develop at this pace, while while the other countries continue to, what do you say, continue to develop at their own pace, right? But yeah, if I was to generally answer your question, some systems develop in 20 years, some systems are imperfect even after 100 years, right? uh, like the Spanish way of playing, right, has has changed remarkably in 100 years, right? Even today in India, there is no one single Spanish way of playing, right? Gerard Noose is playing one way, Habas is playing another way, Juan Ferrando is playing one way, right? So there is no one Spanish way of playing. But the biggest mistake we often make is that we think one coach or one player can change the system or can make the system, right? That's not going to happen. Nor can we just borrow a system from somewhere, right? That's also not going to happen. We have to develop our own system, our own capabilities, our own, way of, football philosophy, if I was to call it, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean the most efficient outfits in the world, like footballing wise, always have a blueprint in mind, saying this is how we want to play, right? Now, how do we tweak it further? How do we ensure that it remains like this in perpetuity and doesn't disappear, right? Just for example, right? If how many teams in India play the same way across their age groups to the senior team? How many teams in India ensure that what the system that's being followed at under 13 is a system that's being followed at the senior team, right? These are important questions for us to answer before we can even speak about how many years it will take for us to develop a system, right? So I think first the mindset has to change. First, we have to have more clarity over our football concepts, and not do inshallah football, right? Inshallah football is always a very very bad idea, right? Because because of the science that is attached to the game, because of the increasing data that is being attached to the game, right? People are becoming smarter every single day, right? So we cannot be the only ones sticking our heads in the mud and saying this is the system we are playing, this is the way we are playing, and this is it. We cannot be rigid about it today, right? So we have to show some ingenuity before we can even think about developing a system. First, I think first thing is to tell our coaches that youth football is not about results, it's about development, right? This is the first thing that has to percolate down to each and every coach, right? It's not about playing 1,000 formations every game. It's not about that, right? It's about letting the kid have fun, and the kid increasing his or her tangible skill set, you know or intangible, something like developing empathy. You never know when this will come in handy, right? So first, it's about not only teaching our coaches, but like Ajay said, our parents also, right? It's not about your kid playing striker, or it's not about him playing goalkeeper. He's not a bad player because he's playing a goalkeeper. In Europe, the goalkeeper position is respected. It's one of the highly respected positions there, because he's seen as the protector, the last line of defense, right? So some of the most highly respected players of all time are defenders, Maldini, right? So it's about changing all of these mindsets, right? That is going to be the bigger challenge, I feel.
Ajay, your closing remarks on this topic.
I think it's just to continue what Arko said, it's good to see so many Indian goalkeepers in the ISL. Even the likes of Vishal Keth, who is India's number 3, pulling off a stunning save. That's world class in any league. So yeah, it is a long road ahead, and I don't want to repeat the same things that have already been said. But just to close this, I honestly believe that to have the next bunch of attacking players, be it a striker or be it a wide player or be it a trequartista number 10, you need to sow the roots of this particular system in the grassroots. Encourage kids below the age of 12 to have 200 games in a year, without caring about the result. Just keep on playing every weekend. So we need to facilitate for that, be it through school leagues, be it through district leagues, or be it through private clubs and academies like ours. I mean, coming from Mumbai, I can tell you that we don't have enough playgrounds. We don't have enough grounds. Compared to the likes of a Kerala, or a Cochin, where you have more grounds freely accessible where kids can go and play. And that free play is also important, because you can mess around you can try to do a rainbow flick there or try to do a nutmeg, and you can learn and harness it over there. And this is the one thing that a lot of coaches in this particular age group sort of hesitate from trying out, where they say, hey, ऐसा मत करो, ये allowed नहीं है, ऐसा ऐसा करेगा तो हम लोग ball lose करेंगे. 10-year-old, it doesn't matter at that age. Let the child express himself or herself. And going ahead, in terms of putting a structure and making it accessible to all, it shouldn't be. I mean, football is the common man's sport. It's the world's most popular game, and when you put so many rules and regulations and restrictions and price limits, it doesn't become accessible. So a club like my club cannot participate in the Youth I League right now because the fees are way too high to participate in that. And as a football club, I get nothing, absolutely nothing, playing in the Youth I League. So a lot has to change. A lot has to change from bottom up, and only then, once we have say all these structures in place, even a reserve league, even an under-21 league, will we see results in terms of producing players not only in the striker position but across the pitch?
Like, just to add to that, right? Like, the things that you can do, not for a very small kid, even for someone who's in his late teens. Like, the 3+1 rule coming in will be good because you won't be able to most likely replace a foreign striker with a foreign striker. You'll have to stick to an Indian striker, mostly as a number 2. So that's going to help. Why? And there's something also, some coaches are also asking about this. Like, why do we need to have a foreigner in the second division? Don't have them. Play with an all-Indian team. FCBO did this year until it became, the 4 knockout sort of a thing at the end. They were playing with the all-foreign lineup. So do that so that the foreigners get. Bodo got a chance to play at number 10. How many Indians play at number 10 role? So you give these chances to these boys and have a reserve league. Like, you have a team is traveling. Let's say Bangalore is going to Goa, and there's going to be a bunch of players who haven't played in the first team. And if you have a reserve league parallel to this, logistically it becomes easier. The same, shipment, with same flight, everybody can go there. Even the first teamers who didn't play in that day can play in the reserve league the next day. So you can get some game time. And then this chance for an Indian player is key. So any league in the state leagues, the VDFA, the MDFA, the Shillong League, everywhere, only Indians. You don't need a foreigner to come there. Just play only Indians. Make sure that no foreigners are allowed in these kind of leagues. So at least they get the chance to play competitive football with stakes, and they can play and learn. And so that's something that which can be fixed even now, and it's something that they should probably look into. Again, it's like a never-ending debate, but yeah, I think that's something that they can look at.
Just playing the devil's advocate here very quickly, just to close this off. I agree with the point about the reserves league, but I don't necessarily agree with the point about playing all Indians in the second division, because when you have that one foreign striker or a foreign centre back, right? Your Indian striker or your Indian centre back is getting a proper run out. He's getting a proper workout also. Like, he's being tested also to the fore, right? So I won't mind the I League also going down to a 1+1 rule, right? Or a 2+1 rule. I think Robert Royte was the one this time who asked, who said, let the I League be 2+1 or even 1+1, right? Because he knows that, the lesser the number of foreigners, the more favorable it is to his team, ISL, right? So do we really want to eliminate all the chances of, our guys getting tested against that one foreign guy? I don't think it's a feasible idea right now. But yeah, the lesser the number of foreigners, the better it is, for sure, for Indian players at the lower divisions.
Well, I think it comes down to finally how patient are we to look forward to, and how key and interested are we. So talking about patience, we are running out of time. So quickly to look at even the matches, because this is definitely a never-ending topic. Probably we will, as we end to have towards the end of the season, we can have a guest coming over, and probably we can have a chat then as well. Because there is no cut to cut. So there is probably solution laid out, and even people on the top do know it. But then again, how effective are we to implement them? One second, how patient are we? Like I said, quickly running into the games, most of the matches coming up in the weekend and going about towards the start of the next week. I think it depends a lot on the matches that, because there are teams that are playing, as the days that we record. And once it comes out, there are a lot of it depends on the matches that will be played out during that time. So I don't think it's quite sane to probably talk about them. So I think the only game that we will discuss about is probably a Bengaluru versus Kerala Blasters, because the others, like I said, will be depending on the games that we may not be able to cover on the show. So Bengaluru versus Kerala Blasters, Sandeep, I will come to you and you'll have the last word, probably the only word on this game. Do you see Bengaluru gaining that confidence back against their foes, their good old friends?
I think Bangalore are playing as well as they can, to be completely honest. I think that's the team. There might be a few tweaks that you can do, maybe get a little more goals in different ways, but I think that team is playing as well as they can. They're defensively quite good. Offensively, they don't have that much options. Very good at set pieces. I think Huanan is their top scorer, if I'm not mistaken, with 2 goals. So he's a centre back. So yeah, I mean, Kerala has a lot to learn. So probably that might be their undoing because they're not in good form. They're still learning how to play Kibu Vikuna's way. So maybe they're undoing that one. And Gary Hooper hasn't impressed me at all with the money and the name that he comes with. He's not been that great. So I would still give the edge to Bangalore because I think they have the know-how. They are mentally a very good team, so they'll be able to get a result there. That's what I would think. But yeah, I think they're BFC are playing as well as they can possibly play.
Yeah, and Kerala will also be missing the services of Siju, who was good for them. And finally, I mean, out of due to an injury, he will be off the team. So, yes, Ajay, final word.
Yeah.
Come on.
So just want to put it out to you as the panel. Who do you think will end up, having seen all these matches so far? Who do you think will end up as the top Indian goal scorer in this current season?
Quickly, Sandeep, one name.
Sunil Chhetri.
Arko, one name.
Sunil Chhetri.
Yeah, I think I will go by that. I will probably. Do you want to say that again?
I'm going to go for Manveer Singh.
Guys, thank you so much for this discussion. And as I said, this is, you can't really put a full stop to the discussion, right? We will have to see it implement in action, and we have to be patient. But all of said and done, this is the episode number 5 of the Totally Indian Football Show. Thank you so much, Ajay, Arko, and Sandeep. As always, thank you to the listeners. We are available on audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can also listen to us on HOIF, that's Humans of Indian Football's YouTube channel. Guys, thank you so much for all the love and appreciation that we've been receiving. Continue to do so. We'll be coming up with more episodes, and to actually say this out loud, next episode that will be dropping out next Friday will be the last episode of this year, because hey, come on, it's season ending and we also want to take a short break. But do join us. There'll be a special guest. He's yet to confirm final, but hopefully he will do that, and we'll have a great chat about Indian football and more. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I'm your host, Siju Matthew, and you were listening to episode number 5 of the Totally Indian Football Show. Thank you very much.